All right, we're live.
Yay.
Hey, YC.
Hi.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome. I just got to get this teed up here. So, Nina, tell us about, you had a really fascinating conversation with one of your clients this week. Tell us what is going on. It's a good, interesting conundrum to have.
It's super, like, I'm so curious how it's all going to work out. Basically, like, how do we think really creatively in this scenario, which is, this is a studio that's been around for over 10 years. And the long and the short of it is that they have met their capacity. They're beyond capacity. Members can't book into classes, and she's understaffed. And there simply are not teachers locally to add more classes to the schedule. And she personally, as an owner, is maxed with her capacity of being able to teach more. So what do you do? What do you do?
Well, my
Tell us
first
what to
thought is,
do.
my first thought, capitalistic me, raise your price,
Yes.
raise your prices,
Well, I see where you're going there,
right? Because that's one way. We always say, like, the general rule of thumb is when you're
Right.
70% full, 70%
That's
of the
right.
time,
Totally.
that's a way to do. You could raise your prices, and
Yeah.
maybe not so much, maybe not membership, but maybe like the intro offer, whatever. Are they, are they direct to membership, or
They're not.
they're not? Just a,
That is we were going there, but I didn't see that correlation.
yeah.
See that correlation.
So
So
you
that's
could,
really helpful from a coaching perspective.
yeah. So you could do a, they could switch to like the direct to membership, and whether or not they want to
So good.
raise everybody's prices. I don't know when the last time they had a price adjustment or anything like that.
Yeah.
They could keep people at
Right.
the current price and then have a new pricing strategy for anybody coming in. And so let's say their monthly membership right now is 120, maybe they bump it up to 140, and then their first month is like 80 or something like that. So that's one way you can, you're not going to have as many people coming in, but if you're full with waitlist all the time, then do you really need people coming, a bunch of people coming in?
Right. But the question then is that the members are the ones that are not able to book in. And so I can hear her saying, well, I wouldn't want to penalize my members by
Right.
raising them up necessarily.
Yeah.
But she also has a lot of people buying drop-ins. So we definitely need to raise that. Like
Oh,
we already know that. But let's, like, now that you said that, we're gonna go even higher. Unreasonably priced.
yeah. I mean, yeah, you can make it so that
So that it's really like it's a membership studio, which is what we coach to anyway. That's what we coach to.
Yeah, I would, you want to practice here, you got to be on a membership. You could even make like a recurring class pack if they, and stop selling like, I have a client here out in California that does that. It's like, and their drop-in is $50. Their drop-in is $50. And granted, they're in California, but that's even high for California. Intentionally, it's high.
Right.
Right. And then they have they basically have their membership, their direct to membership, and then they have like a mini membership. And that's it.
Now, tell me why the direct to membership for this specific scenario over a regular membership?
You mean a regular intro offer?
Intro offer that then you upsell them to the membership.
Because right away you can raise that price up. My thought is it's just like you make it, you peg that price higher, and right out the gate it's a membership. If you want to join as a member.
Why is it higher automatically?
Because if you're trying to, you're trying to limit the amount of new people coming in is what you're trying to do. And the new people that are coming in are paying a higher price for it.
So we really do in this scenario want to limit the new people coming in.
I even care what's your thought.
Having around that.
Yeah, I think we've talked about, there was a studio somebody had who they had a limited number of memberships even at the unlimited tier.
That's
one of yours.
I think, that was one of mine.
And it was like, like if she's having trouble getting her members into class, it might be that the unlimited is that higher price point. There's only a limited number of them. They have priority booking.
Yeah.
And then like once, if somebody goes off ship, I remember your studio was like, we have one available
Yeah.
of unlimited. Who wants, you know, it became very, you know, exclusive almost
in a way.
because
Yeah,
of it.
it was like,
Yeah.
it was like, hey, you want an unlimited, exactly. Thanks for remembering that, Carol. That's the other thing is you're like, we have a finite number of unlimited memberships. Everything else is limited. And you could, even with the existing clients, you could, whatever they're at now, you could keep that and say, this is now becoming a limited membership with X number of classes a month. And if you want a truly unlimited, it's more. And then you get the priority booking. Do you know what software do they use?
Unfortunately, it's BS Sport.
Oh, yes, Sport. I am not familiar with that one at all. I don't know if there's ways you can do that.
So far, she's not happy. She's not happy.
Yeah, so I mean, there's ways you could, go around that, but that would be my thought is limit the number of unlimited. And maybe the intro offer isn't an unlimited membership.
Well, and you said that she has a second room. I was almost like, do you put a camera in there and have, a screen, like you could do like a virtual room almost.
You know what, that you just said that, Carol, that just I have a client here in actually I think they're in Indiana, doesn't matter where they are, that did just that. They had a room upstairs and they did exactly what you just said because they were maxed out downstairs. And then, so they did I don't know if they had a video, a camera, but they did something where people could take a class up there.
Wow.
At the same time. So
wow, interesting.
That could be an interesting option. And then if you take class in that room, I don't know if B Sport can do this, but you can make it like, okay, it's a lesser price, it's like, okay, you can book, right? Because you're not in the same room.
It wouldn't work because it's the smaller room is not heated, and it's really the heated classes that are, and she's not interested in. She's not interested in that. We did talk about that, but not in this context.
Bring it up in this context and then say, throw some space heaters in there.
Yeah, she was kind of like, no, I don't want this. There's a stairs and slip, and I don't want to have that be heated room. No, that's our cold room, and it's just yin, and it's just 3 classes a week. But I will listen. We're thinking creatively.
Tell her we're thinking creatively, that we put it out there. So yeah, if anybody's in this situation, but I think adjusting the pricing, coming up creative with the pricing, maybe doing something like what Carol suggested with the room upstairs. What about offering if, I think you said they're 26 and 2?
Yeah, they offer that and hot Pilates and just hot yin classes a week.
So is it 26 and 2 teachers they're having trouble getting?
Yes.
So maybe they put on some more, maybe they could put some more IHP classes on the schedule if that was a possibility, or is it just like they cannot put any more classes on the schedule, period, end of story?
I think it's her big hesitation was I'm understaffed even with the IHP, and she can't teach more.
Yeah, no, that's not a good long-term solution.
No, exactly. And I asked about, well, would you like to have a teacher training? And she's like, no, not at all. Not in my spare time, and not ever. And then she wasn't interested in bringing in Gabby to lead one for IHP. Yeah. Because of maybe not wanting to she's the only one that offers what she offers. And she didn't want to create competition, which is another interesting conversation. Because I know that when I had my studio, I was gripped by the fear of, and like everything, all of my worst nightmares happened in studio ownership, all of them. And guess what? I came out ahead, and I lived to tell the story. And, I did have a client actually who, long story short, but it's an interesting story, came in and wanted to basically take my studio from me and sell it back to me. A total charlatan, a total snake. And when I said, oh, no, thank you, he opened up across the street and offered everything that I offered. And it was like not just a thorn in my side. It was like I would go to sleep and wake up with this. I mean, it
Yeah.
practically ruined my marriage. It was just like so stressful, and I just felt so, I had a non-compete, like no, but none of my teachers could teach it. I was just, and the truth is, it did not hurt my business, not one drop. So what's that saying that
All boats rise, all ships rise with the tide, or all boats rise with the tide. Well, there's a reason if you look at like a Dunkin' Donuts and a Starbucks, or the gas stations, like you got a Shell Oil and then you got a Mobil, or, you know, or CVS and Rite Aid and
It was-
Walgreens.
it's a
It-
lesson in capitalism,
Yeah.
and also, because I'm the woo-woo among us, the energy
Yeah.
of like, where do I really want to put my energy? Am I focusing on what they're doing across the street or what I'm doing?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, that was a little side note.
Well, I would say then I wouldn't be maybe not fearful of that, because there are online 26 and 2 trainings. There are, I think Gabby offers an online version of IHP, I'm
yeah.
pretty sure. You know, so there's other ways if she's not
Right.
interested in doing her own YTT.
Yes.
There's,
But
what
I
is it?
just finished leading an online teacher training.
Yeah, and then there's, what is it, Ida and
Ida and Scott.
Scott have, I think it's Scott, but there are several 26 and 2 online trainings out there that she could, you know, promote to her students to see if she can get some 26 and 2 teachers. She could bring us all over. She could fly us,
That would be so fun.
but no,
Oh my
that
gosh.
would- yeah.
Oh, no.
Well, you
In
know,
our spare time, right?
that's okay. Idea.
Okay.
What if she did reach out and offered, like, maybe not a long term, but it could be traveling teachers? If she could provide, like, again, this is how I ended up in Massachusetts. I had a friend who needed help, same sort of newer studio, needed teachers, blah, blah, blah. I went out initially for 4 months and stayed 12 years. However, that's how I ended up there, is I went as a guest teacher and she had a place for me to stay. Right? So she provided a place for me to stay. And then once I got there, I just started teaching. And there's a bunch of Bikram studios in a very tight geography up in New England. I ended up, you know, staying because I'm like, oh, now all of a sudden I'm teaching at 3-4 different studios and I'm
Right.
teaching full time, blah, blah, blah. So there's this thought is like, if she has a, you know, she could put out on like any of the number of Bikram Yoga Facebook group pages, hey, I'm looking for a teacher, a Bikram teacher, ideally Bikram and IHP, if they have that.
There are many.
There are this many classes a week.
You too.
I will provide us a lodgings, kind of a place to stay. I mean, that's
Yeah.
a
This is
possibility
great.
too.
This is great. Thank
You
you.
know, and then it'd be like, if you're interested, you know, send me your resume, send me a recorded class,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
that kind of thing. I like that idea.
Wow. I love this. Wow. Makes me want to join the YC. You all are brilliant. What
So-
amazing creative solutions.
That could be, I mean, that would be if she were then to get some people that wanted to do a virtual training, that could be, like I said, when I went out to my friends, it was actually Terry Almquist, who is a member of the YC, and her studio is, at the time, was in North Andover. I went out for just 4 months, right? It was like, that's initially what it was.
Right. But stayed for 12 years.
I stayed for 12 years. But then after that, she did have, because she has this big old house, this 1890s Victorian house, and all her kids are well, you know, grown and out on their own. She had all this extra space. So now I think she almost always has a traveling yogi in residence.
That's so cool.
Right. So
Yeah.
I was gonna make a connection. Oh, so she could do this, bring the person in. Oh, that's what the thought was. That's why I went back, is that she had a couple of people in the teacher training during the time I was there. Right. And then, so that could be it's like, hey, get some people on teacher training. You know, you could throw some extra classes on the schedule while they're getting trained, and then have a traveling teacher, you know, be there to add however many classes that, you know, she wants to add to the schedule. But that could be a solution.
Cool. I will present these. I love it. Thanks. Thanks, team.
But yeah, and I wouldn't necessarily discount throwing some heaters in there with a screen, you don't know. And raise the prices.
Listen.
Yeah.
At that price, that we're definitely gonna look at pricing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, well, we solved that. What else? What else is going on out there? Carol, what's going on with your clients this week? What's going on? Anything coming up?
Well, we're at the start of Q3, so we're evaluating how Q2 went, and then the end of Q3 is September. So if you're looking at doing an open house in the month of September, now would be the time to plan for it. So we're getting that situated with a few clients. And we've talked about other things too, like again, it might be a slower time. So we're doing some org chart, or accountability charts. We're getting, just some housekeeping. A few of my clients are doing their tiered pay scales and putting people in different, into their respective tiers and making sure that that fits and doing evaluations and all those kinds of things and getting some of that more. Those can be heavy lifts and take a longer time to get in place. But once it's in place, it's easier, longer term.
And that brings up a good point too, because I follow our favorite yoga lawyer, Corey Sterling, who we all know and love. And I follow him, I should say, I get his emails. And let me tell you, I don't know who writes them. I'm sure he doesn't, but maybe he does. I shouldn't say that. They're really fun to read. He gives good email.
Well, his whole thing is law is fun, right? So it better be a good email.
So his email is like, they are like a travel digest, and the things he talks about in there. So if you haven't subscribed to his, you go to a Conscious Counsel or just Google Corey Sterling. So I basically, and I read because they are so interesting, and I have reposted some of the stuff that he has puts in the email into the YC. Is also now is a good time to renew all your contracts and all your agreements. Like, when was the last time you updated your membership agreement or your waiver? Was the last time you did it during COVID? Well, maybe now is a good time to go back and look at some of those documents, and do they need to be updated at all? And a refresh to, like you said, I have just recently did an on-site, and we talked about a bunch of different stuff, as we always do, and came up with a few things that they want to add. And one of them was a sub policy. And so the owner's going to be updating their employment contract, going to define the sub policy, and then update the employment contract. Because remember, you can update an employment contract at any time. I mean, ideally at the end, you say this document may be updated, blah, 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 with this much notice, blah, 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 right, kind of thing. And actually with independent contractors in this country now, you have to do it every 6 months.
Is that right?
Yes, new IRS.
Update
every 6 months.
Contract.
Every 6 months. You need to be having, now they can re-sign the same agreement, but every 6 months they have to sign a new independent contractor agreement. So it's not a set it and forget it. So this is a good time to kind of, along with, like you said, Carol, looking at all those other things, it's a good time to look at all those agreements and, is it time to update? Do we need to change anything? Do we need this policy? What's going on? What's going on in my business? And always, because that was one of the points of Corey's recent emails was, this is a good, when was the last time? And he was the one who said, when was the last time you updated this? Has it been since COVID? Well, it's 2024. We're way past COVID. At least COVID's still here, obviously, but in terms of what it did to businesses in 2020 and 2021. So these are the kind of things that are just like, for me, they're incredibly tedious, which is why I paid people to do it. Right. It's halfway through the year. It's a good time to check in, mid-year check in with your financial person. Am I on track with my estimated taxes? Right? Don't get, particularly we've got clients whose businesses have really just they're kicking it. Well, when you're paying your quarterly estimates here in the States, it's based upon your previous year's income. So if your sales are way up or even up, it's like, okay, are your quarterly estimates keeping up a pace with that? And if not, it's a good, now you can start to self-correct because you still have 5 months before the end of the year. So maybe you're like, oh, shoot, I'm maybe going to need to increase my quarterly tax payments, or maybe I'll put a little bit more, let's face it, the government will take more money. They will, you can go into your EFTPS and then go in and say, I want to make this as for a quarterly, you can add to your balance prepay, so these are all things, the fun things you can do during the dog days of summer.
I love it.
Yeah, I also just had another thought that flew out of my mind. Yes, so open houses. What's a good time to do an open house in September, Carol?
That's a good question.
Right.
I think, yeah, you got to make sure it's not around a holiday. I think we've talked about this too, is like anytime you're looking at doing an event, you should make sure, is there anything else big going on in your city that you may have forgotten about, or is it a holiday, that kind of thing. So probably, it's funny, we've done a lot of chatting about how a lot of studios in their mind, September's big because like all the kids are back in school and everyone comes back, but it doesn't necessarily seem to be that way on paper once you start to look at your actual numbers. So I would think not to, of course, here in the States, we have Labor Day at the beginning of September. I would think mid-September would be good. A couple of my clients are in university towns, so they're sort of thinking they want the university students back in for a little bit and getting settled before they do some kind of big push. So yeah, that's sort of where we're looking at the end of September.
Yeah, I would concur. I think definitely, even after the kids are back in school, that's always a big one because a lot of families will take vacations right before school starts back up. Although some schools around here, they start like middle of August, like the high school that's just down the street from me, they start in the middle of August. Actually, it's really kind of cool because they have a really, I guess they've won awards for the marching band. And when they start practicing, my first summer I was here in 2021, I'm totally going in a rabbit hole here. But I'm like, one day I'm like, God, is that drums? What is that? And so I went down, I'm like, there's a big field behind the high school. And they all of a sudden explained, because there was this big, looked like a fire tower with steps. I'm going, what is it? It's a local fire department? And no, that's the band tower. So when they're doing the rehearsals, the band director, they're all up there with headsets. It looks like something, out of like a Netflix series or something, whatever.
Yeah.
And then they're all down there practicing the formations and the flag twirlers, whatever, they're there. And sometimes I'll just go over in the middle of the afternoon. I'll just sit on the grass and watch them because I was a band geek. So I was like, oh my God, this is so fun.
Me too. And then they have to start early. You have summer band because you have to be ready for those football games.
Yeah, they'll probably be starting up. I think they usually start up right after the 4th. So they'll probably be starting up in the next week or so. And I really feel these kids are out there, they're working their buns off in the hot, sun beating down, and they're out there. Yep.
Wearing all that.
That was a total aside. I just made me think about that.
Now you have to tell us really quick what you each played.
Oh, I played flute.
I played clarinet, so we were both wind.
Okay, all right. I would picture you on some kind of percussion, Terry.
No, I played clarinet. I started playing clarinet. I was never very good. I always like to say I was okay, but I was mostly in it for fun. And I wasn't in the symphony. In high school, we had the symphony orchestra and the band. And I didn't quite have the skill level to be in the symphony orchestra, but I certainly had the skill level to be in the band, which was fine with me. But it was fine. It's just like with athletics. I was, I ran and I swam. I was never the fastest. But as my coaches said, they could count on me to show up. And like in swimming and track, you get points for placing. Right. So you get if you don't come in first place, if you place, then the team gets points. So my coaches could always count on me to show up on time, put the work in, and I always placed, and I had fun. You know, I wasn't going to be the next Olympic
I
runner.
want you on my team.
Okay, have team will start anyway, which is a good segue to teachers. We've talked about that before. You know, having teachers that show up,
Hmm.
are happy to be there.
Wow.
Maybe they're not the rock star that, you know, but
Don't
there's
need
things
it.
that they support you. You know, I'd rather have
Yes,
5 of those teachers than 10 rock stars.
yes.
Classes are good, that type of thing. Oh, speaking of that, another thing, I just had a follow-up call with one of the on-sites that I did earlier this year. And part of the on-site we do is we send out before we get there, we send out a survey, a staff survey and a client survey. And so we were reviewing those surveys on the call, and it was really interesting. A couple of things really leapt out. One, what the owner had wanted the studio to be, the vibe of the studio, the culture was evident in the responses from her clients. It's like, yep,
Yes.
it's very
Great.
congruent with what she wanted. And this is, and I'm just going to blatant pitch, this was a client that started with us before she opened her studio. So a lot of that work was done really defining what it is you want that message to be. So that really resonated through all of the comments in the client survey. One thing that was interesting is someone said it would be nice if there was more diversity, which is a good comment. And at the same time, it's like, what's the demographic of your area? You know, it's like sometimes it's like your demographics, your demographic, where you draw from to where you draw from. That doesn't mean we can't look to have more diversity, maybe within our teachers and do some outreach. It's just sometimes that's a tough one, I think, with diversity, is depending on where you're drawing from, you know. And so that was really like and it wasn't even a negative comment. It was more like it would be nice to see, or, you know, that kind of like that type of thing. So I thought that was really interesting. There was a little bit of negative feedback about the parking. Well, you know, again, parking is kind of parking. There's not a lot you can do about that. But then what was also interesting on the staff side was, again, you could see how it resonated with what she wanted to create within her community, including the teachers. And this was what was really interesting. Almost all of them said, and she had a really good response from, I would say she had about 2/3 of her staff responded, which is pretty good for a survey. The other overarching thing, this is where the sub came out, is like, you know, the sub management thing, because there was some frustration expressed about that by other teachers. It's like, well, because she's in the enviable position where she has teachers that want to teach for her, but she doesn't have space for them.
Yes.
And some of the teachers that are subs are like, it's frustrating that I would like to get more classes, and yet these people are constantly asking for subs. Right? That they're on the regular schedule, and yet they're perpetually requesting subs. So that is what led to, okay, we need to have a sub policy, right? And so she's working on that. And then the other thing that came out of it was they wanted to do more things as a team, more get together. And like one of the teachers who was a more experienced teacher made the comment about the newer teachers, and that it would be nice. And then we're like, okay, well, maybe here's an opportunity to create a mentor teacher, and maybe this person who has the experience. So that's another thing. Okay, let's maybe work on that. Because again, valid point. New teachers need to be mentored a little bit more. So there was that. And then the whole thing with community. So the studio director and I talked about, well, she's like, well, I just, you know, I don't have a big budget. I said, you don't have to pay it all. I mean, it's like, they just want to get together.
Yeah. I mean, I had a client who the studio owner was like, the team wanted to do it. It's like, okay, guys, you are having my permission anytime on our Slack channel to be like, hey, we're going for coffee. And it's not like the studio owner has to, you know, pay for that, but it's just put it out there to the whole team. Hey, anyone want to go to, you know, get tacos after this class? Put it out, and it does. So And she even was talking about trying to have maybe one of the prominent, teachers kind of be in charge of it just to help, but
Yeah.
even that, I feel like just
Great.
give them permission to
I
like
love
use
that.
their
Yeah.
your channel to like get together when they want.
Yeah,
And
creating that
yeah,
community
that
and-
freedom to do that.
I like that. I didn't think about that. That's a great idea. And the other thing I suggested too is it's like, well, what if, and this studio happens to be a very beautiful space. And so if you have a very beautiful space, what about having a special class for the teachers and then say, hey, why don't you bring some takeout? We'll do class and then we'll sit around and have dinner afterwards.
Oh.
Or something like that. And
Yeah.
just, it's like, they're not asking you to pay for it. They're just saying, hey, we'd like to spend time together, which is
That's incredible.
that's incredible.
That's incredible.
Yeah, the staff wants to spend time together.
Really points to a really healthy
Yeah,
culture.
healthy culture. It's like they want to spend time together.
That's
Yeah.
pretty great.
And yeah, it doesn't have to be say, hey, we're gonna, like you said, Carol, we're gonna go to this park. Everybody let's have a picnic lunch one afternoon. Let's meet in whatever local park and bring your lunch and let's hang out and da da da. I mean,
That's cute.
yeah. So there's lots of things you can do that you as a studio owner don't have to pay for. Or maybe you can bring like a special treat. Maybe you bring dessert for everybody, or maybe what else. It doesn't always have to be you paying for it. I like that idea. Put it out there.
Right. The studio that I sold, they have a thriving community of teachers and clients. But they'll do like hikes and they'll open it up to students, and there's no fee. It's just, these two teachers are leading these hikes every whatever. And then they'll also like go bowling and go roller skating, and it's just really cute. I never did that when I was the owner. They're just
it says, hey, we're going to meet at this park and go for a hike at this trail. We're going to be at the trailhead at 10 a.m. Or actually, one thing that one teacher did bring up, because they do some community events, and this was she said, can we please not do community events, kind of some of these things you're talking about, when there's a scheduled class, because then there's nobody in class. I thought that was a really valid point. It's like, if you're going to do like a community event and include the community, then do it in a time when there's not a regular scheduled class.
yes.
So that then, the teacher that is teaching the class during that time has the opportunity to go if they should like, and B, it's not taking clients away that would want to practice that class and go do this community event.
Yeah.
So that was another good call out from her staff. It's like, yeah, could we please not? And it was said in a very nice, it was like, hey, can we please not schedule community events when a regular class goes on? And that was what she said. It's because it impacts I can definitely see a correlation when we have a community event on my class size, and I'd like to be able to go sometimes.
Yeah.
Valid, right? Hey, that's a good idea. You could do a survey during the summer.
Yeah.
And just remember, be careful what you wish for.
If you
Do
really-
not, I would not, would you let me ask you this, guys, speaking of surveys, because I get this, and I certainly did it when I owned my studio, is if you're thinking of adding a class time, do you survey your clients on when should we schedule classes? Yes or no? I have my answer. Be curious what my colleagues think.
I have done that. And part of the reasoning, the strategy behind that is that whether I do what they wanted or not, but it's so that it, how do I want to phrase this? It sort of gives the optics or impression that I'm asking for their input.
Yeah.
And I am asking for their input. It's just that I may or may not do things.
Yeah. Carol, what about you?
My thought whenever you brought this up was like, just be very careful how you ask the question, is partly because even Nina, in that instance, I almost, because I did this too as a studio owner, it's like, just because you're asking, some people just assumed that this was going to happen. It was like, oh, now I have power as a student now, and I can influence you know, it was just this sort of weird
Right, right.
shift where some people really were like, well, I said I wanted this and
Yeah.
now it should happen.
Yeah.
So,
4:30
so
a.m.
right. No.
You're just like, no.
I found, one time, it's like, you never, if you ask and then like you don't do, then you're never gonna satisfy everybody.
No.
You're never, and you're gonna have people like, oh, I said I wanted 6 and you put it at 6:30. Or, I'm talking specifically in the morning, or I wanted this time and you put that time. And so now I just felt, for me, it just, and maybe it was the way I asked that, going back, thinking probably more than likely it was the way I asked. However, it's just be careful, when you're putting those things out there, is kind of like, be careful what you wish for kind of thing. And but yes, schedules is, I always said schedules part art, part science. And, just knowing the things to know with your schedule is, what big one is, what is school drop off? What is the primary school in your area? What's the drop off for the kids?
Mhm.
Right? If the drop off is, around 8:30, 8:45, do you want to have a class that starts at 9? I don't know. Can people get to the studio in time? I taught at a studio where it was like their 9 a.m. class was actually like a 9:10 class. And I'm like, why don't we just make it 9:30 or even 9:50? And and I get it. I do not like teaching classes on the quarter hour. It really kind of throws I don't know why. But I said, why don't we make it? Oh no, because the studio director at the time had this bugaboo about she did not want any classes. All the classes had to start on the hour. I don't know why, but anyway, they did. And it was, I thought it was, and they would still, this was OGB Chrome. We still did a 90-minute, she still expected a 90-minute class, which I thought was kind of disrespectful for the people that did get there on time. Right? They're expecting the class to start at 10. And if you don't start till 9:10, and then you're always going over 10 minutes, I mean, and then people are like, well, always I have to leave because I had allotted this much time for this class. And, and so anyway, I don't know I have no idea if they ever solved that or not. But I just thought that was really weird. It's like, yeah, I
was going to say the thing about surveys as far as like schedule goes and how people respond to surveys, a lot of times they're responding how they think they want to participate, but not how they actually will participate in real life. They want to think that they're a 5:30 a.m. yogi. That would be wonderful to have that as an option.
Yeah.
Will I get up and actually do that? Hell no.
Hell no. No, I remember like, oh yeah, oh, it's great. Oh, you have 6:30 a.m. And I'm like, yeah. And yet they never, yeah, it's like, you're right. It's like, and that is the perception. I can take class at 5:30 if I want to. The reality is I'm probably, the only way I would show up for a 5:30 class is if I was teaching it.
Mhm.
Same.
Right.
Yeah.
I am not taking a, but yet there are people that love to practice that early. Not me.
Mm-mm. No. What did Emmy Cleaves used to say? Anything before 9 is just not civilized.
Yeah, I always said noon. Yeah,
Amen.
I was like, I always said noon. I love noon is a civilized time to practice. I used to love practicing at noon, particularly in the beginning when I was teaching so much in the morning. I would, the mornings and the evenings. That's actually how I got to start practicing at Lynn Whitlow studio. Those of out there who know Lynn, she had a studio in Berkeley, California, and I lived on the other side of the Caldecott Tunnel. So I could get over there and take a class and get back to teach in the evening if, I never taught for her, but I certainly took classes at her studio. And I love practicing at noon. And like when I was in Hong Kong and we had 168 classes a week, I love taking the noontime class as well. I know.
I'm teaching the noon today.
They're teaching the noon today. Yeah. Anyway, and that's another one. What time is the noon class? Is it noon?
Mhm.
Is it 11:30? Is it 12:30?
Right.
Right? It's
Right.
those are all those subtleties of
Nuances.
scheduling, and we can help with that. It's like there are some things about scheduling that like knowing your demographic, knowing, when certain things are, where people commuting to, if they have a longer commute, maybe a 6:30 class is too late. Maybe you do need to have that 5:30 a.m. class. if you really want people to be able to get in, take a class, and then be able to get to work,
There's so many factors.
there's so many factors.
Mhm.
So many different factors, so.
Mm.
Anyway, okay. What else is happening? Anything in the industry? What are we seeing out in the industry? Go ahead.
You look like you're about to say something.
I was about to say something, but you were about to say something.
Well, I was thinking, I think Valerie had asked a question in the network about somebody had posted about a challenge and their challenge cards and things like that,
Right.
bingo going on. And I saw a comment that was like, well, I was thinking about doing a challenge in August, but we've been way more busy than I expected in the summer. So yeah, Nina's got to go teach her class.
Yes,
All right.
bye, Nina. See you
Bye,
later.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Maybe not industry related, but I was sort of thinking, she was asking, but we've been so busy. Maybe I should wait to do the challenge whenever it's less busy. And I was thinking, oh, in my opinion, do that challenge when you're busy.
Yeah.
Keep them going.
Keep 'em
Let's
going,
not
yeah.
plan for. Obviously, our philosophy is, market when you're busy so you don't get slow. And I
Yeah.
think that this is a part of that vibe, is like you keep the interest going, you keep the
Right.
fun going, you keep
Yeah.
these challenges going. So I don't
Yeah.
know, I thought, if Valerie, you're watching, like, yes, do
Yeah.
that challenge in August. Go
Good.
for it.
Go for it. Go for it. Yeah, why not? Go for it. And then I was going to say something, but then you had that great comment. So now I forgot. What was it? I had this thought. What were we talking about before you?
Oh, you were saying, is there anything going on in the industry? What's happening?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Thank you. So one of the things a couple of my clients, and then certainly at some of the on-sites we've done, is they've noticed more people walking in. More, it's like, I say more. For a while there, it was like, certainly coming out of COVID, everybody was signing up, like some studios still required it. You had to sign up online. But I've been noticing, like talking to my clients and some of the on-sites we've been doing recently, I think also some of it does depend on where your location is. But noticing more people just walking in the studio. So if that's the case, what are you doing when they walk in? Do you got
have that defined?
You
Yeah.
have that defined. How are you, depending on where you're located, your location, and if you're open off peak, maybe the studio is open in the afternoon or it's after a class and the next class is until the evening or something like that. They're like, oh, I was just walking by, I wanted to get some more information. Why not treat it just as if they were there to take a class right then and sell them? Oh, it's so great. Let me just give you a quick literature. Actually what most people do to start out is our blah, 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 blah. It's only blah, 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 blah. Unlimited yoga. Let's get you, and then zip it and see what they say. Maybe they sign up. So if that's the case, do your first visit flow. And if they're coming in to take class and they haven't signed up, so if you don't have a process for people who aren't pre-registered, what do you do? What is your you need to have that defined, right, Carol?
Yeah, I was just doing this actually recently with a studio owner, and we were talking about how some of her desk staff would get tripped up trying to enter the information, and I was like, do you have can we get a QR code so that they could have their phone with them and set up their profile themselves so that your staff wouldn't have to enter anything and feel pressured and rushed? And she's like, oh my God, it's a great idea. Like, take it, put it on them. And so there are, I guess, certain ways that you could, you can just make it easier on your staff.
Yeah.
And, just streamline and make the process quicker too. So yeah, we've got little tips and tricks for that. And
absolutely. And then always still, this is the other thing too, is because we still will have, in that case, with more people walking in, you might have someone coming in, like I said, it's like a hot potato, 1 or 2 minutes before class. So this is when having a pen and paper waiver is really important, because if there's not enough time even for them to scan a QR code and fill it out, we're here to tell you, nobody should take class without signing a waiver. So you've got the waiver printed and you just say, hey, Carol, real quick, we need to get you to sign this waiver before taking class, and then we'll take care of everything after class. Right? You just plant that seed and just have them sign it. And then after the class, you can circle back, have them scan the QR code and create their profile. Because obviously when they do that with any software out there, as far as everyone I know, is that one of the things you have to do is acknowledge the waiver electronically, and then that's attached to the client profile. So we were at a studio recently where they were still doing paper waivers and filing them and scanning them. And I'm like, no. Let's go to, and the only time you really need a paper waiver is someone coming in like a hot potato and they got to sign it before taking class. So, but yeah, what is that process you have for people who aren't signed up? And what is your staff saying? Right? Do you have that first visit flow dialed in? Do you have that, hey, what most people do? That's the magic lane. What most people do, right? What most people do is our. And can you here's a challenge question for those of you out there listening. Can you stand in confidence and sell it? I talked to a studio owner the other day, a newer client, and she freely admitted, I am not comfortable doing that. I said, well, then that's our first goal. You have got to be comfortable doing it, because if you can't do it, you can't train your staff to do it. You have to be comfortable to say, hey, what most people do. And stand in confidence that whatever the yoga path you have, that you believe the path to creating a habitual yoga practice is whatever that initial offer is. And if you don't believe it, how is anybody else going to believe it?
It's so true. You're steering the ship here, and you want other people to follow. You've got to be able to do it yourself.
Lead by example. It's like parenting. I mean, your kids learn from you, right? So it's like your staff will look towards you if you're not. And that's another thing too, is are you as the owner following all the policies and procedures that you've laid out for your studio? Because some of the on-sites I've been out, I've noticed the owners aren't. And I don't think it's consciously, it's just, and I'm like, hey, how can you expect your staff to do this, your teachers to do this, if you're not following the policy that you put out? So if you don't like the policy, you don't like the procedure, you don't like it, then you need to redefine it. You need to rewrite it so that you're living what you're putting out there for everybody to see. Yeah, it's not do as I do as I say. It's like walk the talk.
Yeah.
Walk the talk. Yeah, walk the talk for sure. Okay, well, I actually do have a makeup call this afternoon in the next 10 minutes, so I need to get myself organized for that. Any final thoughts on this 5th of July?
Oh my gosh, we've run the gamut today. I feel like, you can get creative with your classes and your pricing, if you're having the issue that Nina's studio is having. And if you need some creative ideas, we're here to help.
Definitely here to help. Yeah, you can always, if you don't have a coach, you can always book a free coaching call, find out what coaching with the YC is like. If you do have a coach, you can always, the option, if you want to dive into some stuff, we can always book additional coaching calls, right? If you want to plan, and maybe you're not like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready for regular coaching, but I'd like help with something, you can always just book a block of time with us. We have 2-hour and 4-hour time blocks. You can book if you want to, hey, I want to do a free yoga weekend or an open house in the fall. I'd like some help with that. You can book a one-off call with us and say, hey, this is what I want to focus on. And we can absolutely help you with that. And then finally, because it wouldn't be a roundup without mentioning, we do still have spots at the summit left. So if you've been on the fence about that, it is in November. It is actually election week here in the United States. So if you do plan on attending, make sure you vote early and vote often. Oh. I just had to say that. Vote early, vote often. So it's the week of November the 4th, and all the info's in the YC. So check it out. We do have the offsite. We still have a couple of on-site places left. We had one member, unfortunately, turned out not able to make it due to some personal reasons. So we do have some spots on site available, and we still have plenty of space that you can book off site. We also have the managers track this year. So if you want to bring a manager with you and you guys can work together as well as separately on your own stuff. If you have any questions about that, reach out to us. We'd be happy to book. If you want to talk to somebody more in depth about that, Maria, our membership coordinator, would be happy to book a call with you and talk about all those specifics and details. Okay. Well, I guess that's it.
Guess so.
Thanks for
Happy
joining.
Friday, everyone. Yeah.
Happy Friday, everyone. And you guys are going to be in a real treat. You might want to mark your calendars, not next week, but the Friday after, and Josh is going to be coming. Because both Carol and I are on vacation that week. And as much as we love y'all, I'm actually logging out of everything. So I get no notifications whatsoever that week. And I think Carol's going to do the same. And yeah, have a great rest of the day. Carol, as always, lovely to see you. And yeah, big hearts. And we'll see you guys all on the YC. Have a beautiful rest of the day.
Go do
Take
some
care.
yoga.